Alright, so I knew most of the songs in this movie, but I'll be honest, in most of those cases, the first time I ever heard those songs was in Glee. Is it weird that I still prefer that version over the original? I wanna dance with somebody. Alright, so this is the biopic of the legendary singer Whitney Houston. Known in her day for having one of the greatest singing voices of all time, she was labeled the voice of her generation. This is her story in the vein of Bohemian Rhapsody, Rocket Man, Respect, Elvis. This movie showcases her rise to fame and her whole career up until her untimely death back in 2012. I remember hearing about that. It was a pretty big deal. And honestly, I enjoyed this movie. First off, Whitney Houston in this film is played by British actress Naomi Ackie. If you don't know who that is, bam, you might remember now. In all seriousness though, I thought she was great. She got the accent down, and whether she's performing on stage or talking one-on-one with someone, she's very charismatic. And she actually had a lot of control in her life over her music anyway. She's like, no, I want to sing like this. She didn't let the outcries of the people get to her, which is actually quite the remarkable feat. Like, one of the things this movie touched on, albeit briefly, is that some people were saying her music wasn't black enough. I love her response to that.
Look, I don't know how to sing black and I don't know how to sing white either. I know how to sing. Woo!
That's perfect. And Stanley Tucci's in this movie. He plays Clive Davis, her record producer, as well as the producer for a lot of big artists out there. Clive Davis is actually a huge name in the music industry. There's a documentary that came out not too long ago. It's pretty good. It's all about him. Watch it if you want a good music education. But the dynamic he had with Whitney Houston in this movie is interesting, because he was basically like just catering to her every need. He's like, anything you want, you got it. He would play these demos for her like, yeah, you want to do this song, and he would let her choose. So I was like, all right, not a lot of obstacles for her to overcome, at least not in that aspect of her life. She did have obstacles, of course, but I'll get to that later. One of my favorite people in this movie, though, was Robin Crawford. She was one of Whitney Houston's best friends throughout her life. And this movie totally plays up the fact that there were rumors about Whitney and Robin having something of a romantic relationship. This movie pretty much says, yeah, they did when they were young. And we see how they deal with that once Whitney starts becoming more popular, successful, famous. Her father, who's pretty much her manager, he's the one who's like, yeah, all right, you can't be seen dating this woman. You gotta start dating some men. And that scene in particular was actually pretty powerful. I was like, oh, damn. Yeah, her father's a douche. And so eventually Whitney Houston marries Bobby Brown. And we see their dynamic, their relationship. They had a kid. Sometimes it went smoothly, sometimes not so much. You know, pretty typical. But if I'm going to change the subject entirely just out of the blue, can I just talk about the music? I know I save the music usually for the end of my reviews, but I just gotta talk about the music here. Because this is Whitney Houston, for crying out loud. Her hits are so iconic, and I love seeing her perform them on stage. Well, by her, I mean Naomi Ackie playing Whitney Houston, of course. But you know, her big hits, How Will I Know? Or how about one of the most popular ballads of all time, And I Will Always Love You. It's funny, that song, I acknowledge how good it is, but it is undeniably really sappy. I usually don't prefer to listen to that song. I'm like, alright, I'll skip to another one. But in this movie, the scene with that song, it's really powerful, and it made me realize, yeah, the song is really good at what it does. It was cool. Thing is, though, is that when you see Naomi Ackie performing as Whitney Houston, I could kind of tell that, yeah, she's not the one singing here. That's lip syncing to the actual Whitney Houston recording. Which in a way I do understand. Because I mean, no one can really sing like Whitney could, let's be honest. Why bother trying to recreate it? Yeah, let's just use the actual recordings. That's a lot better. The way I understand it, they did this movie kind of like Bohemian Rhapsody, where they used some original recordings, they used some of the actors' singing voice, they combined them together to give us the end result. And in this case, I say that's fair enough, because again, it's Whitney Houston. She was known as The Voice. Someone with that title, you don't want to try to recreate a voice like that. So I get it. That being said, I could still tell she was lip syncing. And now we come to my biggest gripe about this movie, and it's a pretty glaring one, and it's the fact that for being 2.5 hours long, it rushes like the dickens. So many times throughout the movie, it starts like halfway through a situation. Like for example, you know the big scene where she sings the national anthem for the Super Bowl? Yeah, that scene starts when she's about halfway through already. I was like, what? Oh, okay. And I mean, that's just one example. That happens throughout a lot of the movie. With dialogue scenes, not just songs. I get the feeling that there's a 3-hour and 15-minute cut of this movie somewhere on the cutting room floor. Maybe there'll be an extended edition when this gets its home media release. Because I understand the fact that you want to show a lot of aspects of Whitney Houston's life, her career, her personal life, what she was like as a person, you know, the woman behind the legend. But in wanting to show all of that, that's a lot of stuff, and it felt kind of crammed in. Quite a few times I felt there wasn't really enough room for the drama to resonate with me. No, it just kept speeding along. Granted, I enjoyed what I was watching, but I feel like if there were just a few more seconds in that scene for the drama to resonate, I could have been really impacted by it. Like really, I felt like I could have cried in this movie. Because there's a scene towards the end where she's performing, and it all hit me, the impact that some of these songs had on the world. There are shots of the audience singing along with her, and I actually teared up at one of those shots. I was like, yeah, man, that is some impact right there. I just wish that for the more dramatic scenes, they would have had that same kind of impact. And I felt they really didn't because they felt too fast. But in the end, I had a good time with I Wanna Dance with Somebody. The acting was great all around, especially from Naomi Ackie. I gotta give props to her. You know I always love watching these biopics because I love me some good music. This movie has some great music brought to us by one of the greatest singing voices of all time. Seriously, no one could do it like she could. The emotional impact of the scenes when she was performing, that was pulled off really well. Just if the movie had really slowed down and taken its time with the more dramatic scenes, which is pretty much me saying if the movie had been longer than 2.5 hours, it would have been better in my opinion. As audiences have proven this year, we are willing to sit through 3-hour movies. I'm just saying. But all in all, I had fun with this one. For I Wanna Dance with Somebody, I will say, go see this movie while it's in theaters. So I Wanna Dance with Somebody. Have you seen it yet? What are your thoughts on it? And what's your favorite Whitney Houston song of all time? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Now if you'll excuse me, it's finally time for me to watch Glass Onion, after everyone else has already seen it. Well, better late than never. Peace!